Lieutenant Marcus Webb had survived 3 years of deep space deployment, 2 boarding actions, and one particularly memorable incident involving a malfunctioning airlock and his commanding officer's prized coffee mug. None of that prepared him for what happened when he opened the door to Quarters 7 Delta on Station Perihelion. The room was supposed to be empty. His transfer orders clearly stated 7 Delta, personal quarters, unoccupied. Instead, he found himself staring at a woman who was decidedly not human. She sat cross-legged on the regulation bunk, surrounded by what appeared to be holographic star charts that floated in the air like luminescent jellyfish. Her skin held an iridescent quality that shifted between deep violet and midnight blue, depending on the angle of the light. 4 arms moved with practiced grace as she manipulated the projections, and her eyes, all 3 of them, arranged in a triangular pattern on her face, turned to regard him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Wrong room," Marcus said, already backing toward the door. The woman smiled, revealing teeth that were slightly too pointed to be comfortable. "I know," she murmured, her voice carrying harmonics that shouldn't have been possible with human vocal cords. Marcus paused. That wasn't the response he'd expected. "You know? Your species always says that when confronted with the unexpected." She made a gesture with her upper right hand, and the star charts collapsed into a single point of light before winking out. "You enter a space, find it occupied contrary to your assumptions, and immediately declare the space wrong rather than question your information. My order said, 'Your orders are correct.'" She uncrossed her legs and stood in a single fluid motion. She was taller than him by half a head, and her lower arms clasped together in what might have been a formal greeting. "I am Lyra. I requested you specifically." Marcus felt his hand drift toward the sidearm he wasn't currently wearing. 3 years in the Terran Navy had taught him that when something seemed off, it usually was. "Requested me for what?" "A test." Lyra moved to the small desk that folded out from the wall, her movements suggesting a grace that came from lower gravity or perhaps a different joint structure. "Your military has been trying to establish protocols for first contact situations. They've run simulations, created training programs, written entire manuals. All useless." "I've been through first contact training," Marcus said carefully. He still hadn't moved from the doorway. "I know. You scored in the 93rd percentile." Lyra tapped something on the desk's interface, and a screen appeared showing his training records. "You followed every protocol perfectly. You made all the correct diplomatic gestures. You even learned the basic greetings in 7 different xenolinguistic families." Marcus frowned. "Those records are classified. I work for your Office of Xenological Affairs. Classification is relative." She turned to face him fully, her 3 eyes focusing with an intensity that made him want to look away. "Do you know what your training didn't prepare you for? Apparently someone breaking into my quarters?" That earned him another smile. "Reality. Your simulations are run by computers or other humans pretending to be alien. They follow scripts. They behave in ways that make sense to human psychology, even when they're trying not to." She gestured at herself. "I am Vraxi. My people have been observing humanity for 6 of your generations. We've watched you spread across your solar system, then reach for the stars beyond. We've seen how you react when things don't match your expectations. And—" Marcus finally stepped fully into the room, letting the door slide shut behind him. If this was some kind of evaluation, running away probably wasn't the correct answer. You panic, or you fight, or you try to apply familiar frameworks to unfamiliar situations. Lyra's middle eye closed while the other 2 remained open, a gesture that might have been amusement. "Your training teaches you to be respectful, to be careful with your words, to observe local customs. All excellent advice. But it doesn't teach you the most important skill." Marcus crossed his arms. Which is remaining functional when every instinct is screaming at you that something is wrong. She moved closer, and Marcus forced himself not to retreat. You opened that door, expecting an empty room. Instead, you found me. Your heart rate increased. Your pupils dilated. Your body prepared for confrontation. These are excellent survival responses, but first contact doesn't happen in training modules. It happens in moments like this. Lyra gestured at the space between them. When you're tired from a long transit. When your expectations don't match reality. When the person in front of you has too many arms and eyes and doesn't move quite right. That's when your training either holds or shatters. Marcus thought about that. His initial impulse had been to back away, to find someone in charge, to report the situation. Standard military response to an anomaly. So this is a test? Everything is a test, Lieutenant Webb. Life is a continuous examination that nobody tells you you're taking. Lyra returned to the bunk and sat down again. Your species is about to encounter mine officially. First contact protocols will be enacted. Ambassadors will exchange carefully prepared statements. But before all that diplomatic theater, there will be moments like this. Humans and Vraxi in the same space, trying to figure each other out. Why me? Your psychological profile suggested you might be capable of adapting. She produced a small device from somewhere and set it on the bunk beside her. It unfolded into what might have been a tea service, though the liquid that poured itself was definitely not tea. You've been in situations where doctrine failed. You improvised. You survived. Marcus thought back to the airlock incident. His CO had written him up for creative problem-solving, which was military speak for doing something that worked but wasn't in the manual. You hacked my service record. I read your publicly available commendations. Lyra poured 2 cups of the not tea. Your species puts everything important into official citations if you know how to read them. The coffee mug story was particularly illuminating. That was classified, Marcus muttered. Only the embarrassing parts. She offered him one of the cups. This is safe for human consumption. My people have been studying your biology extensively. We find you fascinatingly durable. Marcus took the cup. The liquid inside shifted between colors like oil on water. Is that a compliment? An observation. Most species in the local cluster evolved under gentler conditions. When we encounter humans, the thing that strikes us most is how much punishment. You can absorb and keep functioning. Lyra drank from her own cup using her upper left hand, while her lower hands made small gestures. That might have been sign language. You come from a heavy gravity world with a thick atmosphere and active geology. You survived an ice age. You built civilizations in environments that would kill most sentient species. It's remarkable. The HFY stuff, Marcus said, recognizing the reference. Humanity fuck. Yeah, the semi-ironic phrase that had become shorthand for human stubbornness and adaptability. That's what your internet calls it. Yes. Lyra's 3 eyes regarded him with something that might have been respect. My people have a different term. Roughly translated, the species too determined to quit. We find it admirable and slightly concerning. Marcus sipped the drink. It tasted like cinnamon and starlight, if starlight had a flavor. Why concerning? Because determination without wisdom leads to disaster. Lyra set down her cup. Your species is young. You have the technology to reach the stars, but not the experience to navigate what you'll find there. We've seen this pattern before. Usually it ends poorly. So what? You're here to warn us off? Tell us to stay in our corner of space? No. Lyra's voice carried layers of meaning that Marcus couldn't quite parse. We're here to offer guidance, to help you avoid the mistakes that cost other species their future, to teach you that the galaxy is larger and stranger than your worst nightmares and your best dreams combined. Marcus looked at the alien woman sitting on his bunk, drinking not tea in his quarters, and felt something shift in his understanding. This wasn't about protocols or procedures. It wasn't about saying the right words or making the correct gestures. It was about standing in a room with someone fundamentally different and choosing to see a person rather than a threat. "You said I was a test," Marcus said slowly. "What did you want to learn? Whether you could sit down and have a conversation after your expectations were shattered." Lyra gestured at the space beside her on the bunk. "Whether you could move past that initial moment of wrongness and find common ground. Whether humanity is ready." Marcus considered the question. He thought about his training, his experience, all the protocols designed to handle situations exactly like this one. Then he thought about the coffee mug incident and how sometimes the right answer wasn't in the manual. He sat down on the bunk beside Lyra, careful to leave appropriate distance. "Tell me about your people." The alien woman's 3 eyes brightened, and her smile became something genuine. "I think you'll pass this test, Lieutenant Webb." "Just Marcus is fine." "Marcus, then." Lyra poured him more of the color-shifting drink. "Let me tell you about the Vraxi, and about the galaxy you're about to inherit, and about why we've been waiting for humanity to finally reach for the stars." Outside the viewport, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance. Indifferent to the small moment of connexio,